Hi, today I'll be hacking a wizard mini to add a glowing LED lit staff. So let's get started. So today we're going to be making a mold. We're literally going to be pouring our hot glue as if it was plaster that you would pour into a mold. And we're going to use that to make the base for our mini that's going to hold the battery. We will need some very specialized equipment for this. No, I'm just kidding. It's pretty basic. It's the kind of stuff that you can get anywhere. We're going to need a roll of Scotch tape, specifically because we're going to use the interior cylinder part of the roll itself. And we're going to need the bases that either come in packs of minis like this, or you can buy online separately, and they look like this. And I'll leave a link to these and some minis as well at GameGearMaster.com underneath this video. And we're going to use these because they're exactly 1 inch wide, and we're going to use these to make a mold out of the cylinder of this tape roll. Now we're going to need a mold release. And what is mold release? Basically it's a barrier between your mold and what you're molding, so the item that's being molded, in this case the hot glue, doesn't stick to the mold and make it impossible to pull out. And that is going to be parchment paper. I got this from Costco. You can get this at any supermarket too. Just don't use wax paper because the wax will melt and it'll become useless. The other thing we're going to need is we're going to need some batteries. The same that we're going to end up using for the battery to power our mini. These are all spent ones. These are all discharged and completely empty, so they will be garbage anyway. I'm going to use them as spacers. This is probably the most expensive part of this outside of having to buy a mini. I think they're like 10-15 cents a piece by the time you get them online, and I will leave a link for these as well. By the way, these links that I'm leaving at my site, they all take you to Amazon. If you click through those links and buy through those, it helps the channel, so I do appreciate that. First thing is we're going to take apart the case here. Sometimes they put tape on top. You just need to cut that off, but just take it apart and take out the inside. And then we're going to take these two bases from here, just like that. The neat thing about this is the base fits in the middle of this thing, just coincidentally. This is about 1 1/16", where the base is 1 inch wide. And it's perfect because we're also going to be sliding in a piece of plastic in here. And the piece of plastic we're going to take from the cover to the mini. So the first thing we're going to make is the sleeve. This is going to be a circular piece of plastic that's going to be on the outside here that's going to be wrapped in that parchment paper. I just take a piece of masking tape and put it along the top to use as a guide for the width of this piece of plastic. The width is important because that determines how thick our final base is going to be. So I put the tape on there first and then just cut it out. And once you have that cut out, just take off the tape because we don't need the tape anymore. And now we're going to want to kind of gently shape this into a cylinder. Just kind of get the plastic used to being in this shape. And then we're going to put it in here and let it come out like that. So now we're going to want to find out where we're going to need to cut this, because we don't want to have this overlap. We want to have it kind of butting up right against each other. So you hold it sort of tight. You just kind of color the end here. I just draw over both edges. What'll happen is it'll naturally make a line for me at the end of it there. Take that out. Okay, so we have our ending there. And then we're going to make the stand. The piece is going to go inside of here and actually determine how far down we're going to pour. And that's going to be one of these pieces. First thing we're going to do is we're going to drill a hole in it, and you can just use a regular household drill with the smallest bit that comes in any standard set, which is a 1/16 of an inch. And we're going to want to drill this hole right up against this lip on the end here. That's sort of your guide, right? So we're going to do it right against that lip. And what I like to do is when I'm working with something that's kind of this small and this giant of a piece of equipment, I like to lay down the piece of equipment and move the piece that I'm working with. Instead of what you normally would do is you would be pushing the drill into the work surface. Okay, there we go. Okay, so then when we have the hole drilled in the middle, we're going to take and cut out a couple pieces of cardboard that are going to be that would fit naturally within the width of the battery here. So it's basically got to be smaller than the battery. I'm going to glue those onto the bases here. So now we're going to add some spacers to the bottom piece. This is the piece that's going to go into the actual piece of the tape roll. And it's just basically going to be 4 batteries hot glued together, and you'll see they sort of naturally kind of squeeze down almost all the way, not completely, because the hot glue has a tendency to dry at basically the same thinness or thickness. So it actually is kind of nice. It actually makes these spacers very accurate height-wise, which is why I use the batteries and the hot glue instead of trying to make something. This turns out to be right around 9/16 of an inch, which is what you'd like. So we're going to put this onto here now. I'm just going to take off this whole glue real quick. And this large stack goes onto the base that's got the hole in it that we drilled. And squeeze that down. There we go. So this is the piece that's going to go in here, like that. And for the top piece, we're just going to put 1 battery on there. Now you'll notice that there's a bevel on one side, like it's rounded, and on the other side it's squared off. So we want this beveled edge to go down towards the cardboard, just to give it a little bit of an edge to hold the wire coil we're going to make to put around the outside here. And we just hot glue this on there. Now we want to make sure this is pretty well centered, because this is going to define the inside area of our mini base. So now we have all our parts. So the 4 parts go together like this. We have our Scotch tape roll. Inside of that, we're going to put the sleeve that's going to go around the outside of our mold. And then we have the bottom piece that goes into that. And then we have this piece that goes in the top. It goes like this rather, just like that. So what happens is when you have these all together, you have now defined the thickness of the base. And this is going to be where the connector wire is going to be, where we're going to pour all of the hot glue in, and any excess glue that we don't need is going to go shoot out of this hole here, or it's going to come out of the top a little bit. So now the only thing we need to do is cover all this stuff in parchment paper so nothing sticks. And we'll start with the battery. We'll start with the tape roll first. You don't need a whole lot. Nothing really sticks well to this, so it's all about kind of wrapping it and putting it on in such a way that you're not relying on the tape to keep it in place. Right now all I'm doing is I'm going to put tape on it to hold it temporarily, and you'll notice what I do is I don't just stick it on, but I actually wrap it around the entire way, so the tape, the masking tape, is sticking to itself as I loop around, just like that. And I do the same thing in the other direction here. And this does not have to be pretty, clearly. Just kind of fold this in a little bit so it's not so there's not so much excess. Great, so now we've got it kind of held in place. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually tape around the outside edge of this with the masking tape. Just got to take a bit off. And I'm going to start it on the masking tape here that's already on there, because I know it'll stick to that. And then I'm going to kind of try to keep this tight as I go around. We want to cut out the middle on both sides. And just peel the tape back that we don't need anymore. Okay, so now we got that covered in parchment paper. Then we're gonna cover this guy. We're gonna fold over the edges like this and like this, and then bend it. Because it's gonna be bent in there anyway, so we just need to cut off the excess here. Test fit it in here a little bit and see how that goes. Oh, that's pretty good. And these guys, you just kind of wrap them. And what I usually do is I put some tape around the bottom of this. And then I just cut off the excess. if I can see the batteries. And while we're here, let's see if we can find that hole. I usually just go with sort of the dull side of the pin and see if I can feel the hole. Oh, there it is. Poke on through. There we go. And we'll see if we can get it on the outside of the tape here too, so the hot glue will not go on the inside. There we go. Okay, see how that fits? Now it's going to fit a little bit more snugly, which is perfect. That's what we want. We want to have a good snug fit. So now it fits snugly too, which is good. Now we're going to do this guy. I'll be a little bit more generous with this paper because I use this paper on this one as a handle. So we're going to go this, kinda knot that up like that. Okay, so now we've got our mold. We've got all the 4 pieces ready to go. And by the way, this mold is reusable. So because the paper doesn't stick to the hot glue, you can do a lot of these because you can literally just peel off the hot glue really easily. I would suggest making a lot of these at once and just sort of putting them aside so you have them for different minis. It's kind of fast and easy once you have the setup. So. And now we're going to make the inside wire piece, and that is made from, you guessed it, some wire. And this is wire from the Dollar Tree. The most important part of this is it has wire that does not have any insulation on it. You can use anything else that's around the same size, but this is so cheap. You get actually 100 feet of this stuff, 120 feet for $1. So we're going to use this. I already have one that I started right here that I took out of this box. And you're going to need about 1.5 feet of it, like this. And you're going to need to make a little hook like this. Mine was made out of the hook that comes on a planter. I just snipped off the bottom with some wire cutters, and this I already had bent on the end here. But anything, you can even use a nail that you bend over, but you just want to have a hook and a straight edge that you can put into a drill, because we're going to go like this. And put this guy in here. Just like that. Now we're going to use this to coil this wire, just like you would if you were making rope. And this is going to make a very nice stiff braided piece of wire that'll have a lot of little connection points that jut out that'll rub against the battery and give it a lot of good opportunities to get good connection to the battery. It also is going to it's also going to have a little bit of springiness along with the hot glue mold that we're going to make. So it'll keep the battery in place. Now we just need to be able to hold it. I usually use these kind of pair of pliers here. It would be better if you just had a regular pair of pliers. I don't have any nearby right now, so I just use these. But you want to hold them in the end, the ends that don't have the loop on the end. And I usually just wrap it around. Just wrap it around like that to kind of hold it in place. And then put that on there. And now we're going to want to spin this until it starts getting nice, stiff, and straight. See how it's straightening it out? That's what we're looking for. That's got a pretty good tight spiral. That's good. I'm going to take that off. And then what we're going to do it one more time. We're going to loop this one back over to this over here and then put that in our pliers like that. And now we're going to loop the looped pieces together. And you see how it's got that braid now? That's exactly what we're looking for. So we're good to go. So these little bits on the end here, those are going to be, one of these is going to be the lead that's going to go to our lights. So we're going to take and clip off everything else except for one of these leads. We can get rid of this loop here too. And you want this to only be about a 1/2 inch. Basically, it's got to be shorter than the distance from here to the bottom. This is going to sit in there like that. So now we're going to need to coil this around. Easiest way to get this started, I found, is to use a Sharpie. And I use the clip part to hold it in place, and then you just roll it around. Now what we're doing here is we are bending it to a narrower diameter than the final, which means that when I put it on the mold, it's going to stretch out, but it's going to want to go back into that shape that we've just made here, which is great because we want that, because that'll give it some springiness and some tension that'll hold the battery in place. And now we're going to test fit it on our little cradle here. I'm just flattening out the paper a little bit more because it's going to live into that. Remember we put that piece of cardboard in there? We had the battery with the bevel side down. It's going to live in that gap where the cardboard is and the bevel is. You know, I'm kind of going to rough cut it now. Put this on here. Okay, it's pretty close. I have to cut off about 1/8 of an inch. It's better to cut off more so they don't overlap each other than less. You don't want to have them overlapping each other because it'll mess up your mold a little bit. There we go. So you can see it's laying in there really nice in the cradle. It's kind of got a good level with itself. It's hugging the battery all the way around, which we want. So this is ready for mold. And you can also just test fit this to see if this fits together. Yeah, it sure does. So that's, now you can see where that little wire piece, that round ring we made, is going to be sitting in relation to the mold itself. The mini would be sitting up here, and the battery would slide in from down here. So after I made this last time, I made some other ones, and what I've ended up doing is around this coil connector, I've ended up putting a little piece of masking tape in here because it makes it a lot easier to clean this up afterwards and gives much better connection points to the batteries. So it's pretty straightforward to do. All the other procedures are the same. The way we put in the coil connector and we add the hot glue, it's all the same. But we're going to add this one additional step, which is to take a piece of masking tape and put it on the inside edge here, just like that. And we're going to kind of make sure that it's on there really well and it's connected and it's sticking to that coil, because we're going to need to have that stuck in place pretty well for the next step, which is going to be to cut off any excess masking tape. We're going to cut off any excess masking tape that's on the side with the lead. So we're going to cut that off real quick, and we're just going to try to cut it as close to the coil as possible, like this. And after we've done that, we're going to make sure that it's nice and stuck on there, just like that. And it's okay if it rolls around the edge here a little bit, that's fine, because we're going to want to have that extra adhesion for this next bit, which is to put it onto here. You kind of slide it on like that, just like that. And now it's ready to do the same steps as we had before, which is to put it into our molds. But what happens is when we pour the glue, this masking tape will keep that glue from getting on the inside edge of this connector. And this also acts as a nice tab to pull out the piece from afterwards. So that's the only thing that I kind of changed from when I originally made this video, and I highly recommend it. It does make it easier. You know, if you do it the other way, it still makes a decent connection, but I've noticed over time it gets a little wonky sometimes, because just a little bit of oxidation on there makes a big difference if there's a lot smaller connection points. But with this, you're guaranteed to have a much larger surface area for the connection points, so keep that in mind. But on top of this bottom piece is going to be what is going to be the top of the base where the mini is going to sit on. So the mini would sit on, you know, either a piece of cardboard or another base. Now you can use another base. You can put that in there first and use that. I find that cardboard is absolutely just plenty fine, and then I don't waste another base. So I'm going to use a piece of cardboard, but I'm going to use this to trace it from. I'm going to take this out of here. Now I'm going to stick my needle through in the opposite direction here, through that hole, and then I'm going to position this where I want it to be for the final. And usually what I do is I put it on top of a piece of foam so I can push through and have it kind of be easy. Like that. Okay. Okay, so we've got both sides done. Now we're going to put the bottom piece in. It's going to be a little snugger now because you have the wax paper in there as well. Okay, so then we're going to put the cardboard on there. And we're going to do that by putting the pin through the hole and putting the pin through the base hole so they match up, and then gently putting the base in there. And making sure it's all the way down flat, all the way around. Just like that. Okay, so we have the cardboard, we have the pin going through the hole in the cardboard into the base, so we know where that hole is, and it's going to be easy to find later. It's also going to plug it up a little bit while we pour the hot glue. And then we have the coil connector here ready to go. And this little wire is going to go into that hole eventually, which is why we also want to make sure that we mark it well like that so it's easy to find, because once we put the hot glue in there, it might be hard to see. So then it's time to pour some hot glue. So we're going to fill this up a little bit. And you'll notice I'll kind of do it around the outside edge here because I want to make sure that I get it all the way to the edge. The inside, the middle sort of takes care of itself as it flows out. Okay, so there we go. You can kind of see it's sort of like halfway filled up to the top of our sleeve. Now here's the trick. We want to pull this guy out, but we want to make sure we don't forget where that hole is. And this is always kind of fun. So here we go. So I usually kind of put it, kind of rough position it right where the hole is. Pull that guy out, put that guy in. Oh, that was pretty successful. And now we're going to push. And you're going to feel when that battery that's part of this top piece hits bottom. And that's good. And even better is if you see a little bit of hot glue seeping out, and I just did. Yep, that's good. That means it's theoretically full. So there we go. Okay, well, now the fun begins. Now we wait 5 minutes. All right, let's pop this out. See what it did. There we go. All right, we got the base on there. Bingo. Great. This is the plastic bit with the wax paper on. I'm just going to cut it off here, just like this. There we go. Let's see what we do. Now this might cut the parchment paper off too. Yeah, I had a feeling. There we go. All right, let's take the parchment paper out of here. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's try to fit a battery in there. Hey, look at that. Not bad. So there's one base. Now you can kind of clean this up a little bit. Just kind of take off a little raggedy bits here. So now we have one base. It doesn't look like a whole lot yet, but it's going to look kind of like this pretty soon. All right, well now it's time to do some surgery on a Mini. We are going to cut off that staff. Now I'm going to use this razor. You can use a utility knife, blade, and just something to cut onto. You don't want to sort of have it like floating like this and put a lot of pressure on the Mini. You want to make sure that what you're cutting is well supported. And we're going to cut as close to his hand as we can there. Just like that. And that's garbage. And then we're going to do this guy. Just like that. That's not too bad. And we don't need this excess on here. We just need this top bit. And all these little loose parts, put it in something before you lose them. This stuff has a tendency just to disappear. Because this hand is so small, you need a really small drill bit. And those drill bits that I used were from this kit of tiny drill bits. I think it was $10. There is a link to this on my site at GameGearMaster.com. I think it was 10 bucks. And it comes with a whole lot of drill bits. And it comes with this hand drill, which is great in theory, but I quickly realized that it is a lot of work to drill into these Minis. They're surprisingly hard. So what I did instead was I adapted these really tiny drill bits to my big drill. How did I do that? Well, with masking tape. The cure-all, almost as good as duct tape. So you can see here I have a few different sizes. We're going to start at the absolute smallest one because we want to make sure that first hole is good and is in the right place. And this chuck is just a little bit, it can't accept a bit this small because it's just so tiny. But with the masking tape on there, it's perfect. And you can see it sort of oscillates a little bit, back and forth, but yeah, it's all right. And again, we're going to lay it down in our work area. Now with this, I'm going to also take my pin and I'm going to put a little notch that the bit will be able to grab onto to start. Otherwise it may walk around on the figure and I may not get a good start onto that hole. So again, I'm going to use my little wood piece here, always supporting it. So that's my best estimate as to the middle of where that staff was. All right, that looks pretty good. This is something you want to do that's pretty slow. You're gonna lay the drill down so you don't have to hold it, and you're gonna feed the mini into the drill bit. And you don't want to have it be going too fast in the beginning. In fact, you probably want to seat it first. You can feel it kind of notched in there because of that push pin that I just used on there. And you want to make sure as you're going that you keep it on track. In fact, I might hold it this way so I can see. So I can see the plane of his hand and if that's in line with the drill bit. Pretty good. So I'm going to start slow. Okay, so I'm going to leave it on there to cool a little bit. In the meantime, I'm going to pull out a needle and we're going to cut off the pointy bit. What I like to usually do is I like to do it over like a bowl. So the bowl will catch it. Okay, so I got a pretty good divot in there. So I'm going to widen it out a little bit. Now I'm holding it so I can actually see the thinnest plane, which is the ring in the middle. And I want to make sure, because that's going to be the hardest to get through without destroying anything. Now obviously I'm holding this where the drill is going into, so I'm not putting a lot of pressure on this because I want to make sure that I don't hurt myself. Although I will say these little tiny drill bits, they do very little. They don't really have a whole lot of cutting power. But it's still always better to be safe than sorry. This first. Yep, there we go. And I have a dead battery. Oh no, I don't. Hey, look at that. That's working. That's gonna be pretty good. We will yet again use that magic ingredient. Hot glue. 1,000,001 uses, folks. 1,000,001 uses. Yeah. Let's let try for a second. Cool. I'm going to clean out some of this glue. One. There we go. Oh, there it goes. Nice. Now let's see if we get as lucky on the other one. Look, I see it come outside there. There it is. Hey, look at that. Nice. We're going to wire these in place with some super glue. Go like this. Put some glue on there. Pull it through really quick. Yep. And run it down. Nice. That's going to do well. Now, do I try to do another hole here? That'd be kind of cool. Why don't I try to do that? Be a pain in the neck, but, you know, why not? Let's try it. What the hell? Cool. Let's do the other one. Hey, there we go. There we go. All right, so let's test it again just to make sure. I know I do this a lot, but I feel the worst thing is to go through all this and then there's something wrong with something, you know? That's just not fun. Okay, still works. Good. Now we need to sort of figure out where this is going to sit on the base. That will determine a lot about where the leads will be for the wires. Just need a little bit of wire. Put it on here to push through. And let's put it over here. What the heck? Okay, fold this over. So here's the two contact points. We have the ring of metal on the outside, which is this connector here. And then we have the inside piece, which is this guy here. And we're gonna just see with the battery in it, the way it's gonna sit in the compartment, just like that. Could be wrong. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so that works. Cool, so our base works, our LED works, and now we just gotta put the two together. Okay, so then it's time to see if we can scrape off the insulation here. You can do this with your utility knife too. I just happen to not know where it is right now. And I'm just going to scrape this off. And normally, if we were doing this like a professional would, we would solder these onto there. Why would we solder them? Well, because it's a metal to metal connection and it keeps the connection from oxidizing. Well, we're going to get metal on metal because we're going to twirl it around these leads. That's step one. We can get that's solved. But we can't stop unless we do another step is oxidation. We have to make sure that oxygen doesn't get to that connection point. But instead of solder, we're going to use hot glue. What if I make a little hook out of it? So it has something to grab onto. Yeah, there we go. Bend it over. That through. And lay it down. Yeah, we'll put a little bit of masking tape on there just to hold that place. Okay. Make sure this fits well. It does. And then while that's doing its thing, I'm going to grab some dirt. Might as well put that on now with a hot glue. And let that dry a little bit. And now the nice thing is I can put some hot glue on around the outside here and get some dirt on that. Cool. Let that dry for a little bit and then we'll put some primer on it. And you just paint it as usual. I decided to go with some earth tones on this one. I wasn't sure if I was going to use them as a druid or as a wizard, so I figured I'd kind of make him fit for both. Yeah, there's really nothing to really keep in mind when you're painting these, other than if you're going to paint the light, as you can see here, I painted a little bit in a red wash. You're going to want to thin that down a lot. So after we painted our Mini, the last little step is to add the battery and then make it possible to pull the battery out. So to do that, we're actually going to use the cover, or the stand that comes with the Mini, and we're going to use that as a battery compartment cover. And onto this little base, we're going to glue the battery on. So when you pull the compartment off, the battery comes out, turns off the Mini, and you don't waste the battery when you're storing it. First of all, you're just going to put in the battery, and now we're going to put it with the beveled edge down like this, and we're going to seat it where it's going to be, which is right there. And then we're just going to add a little dab of hot glue onto the battery only. We're going to place the cartridge itself, or the cover, where we want it, which is right about there. And we just kind of hold it in place and take it out. So thanks for watching, and happy crafting. Please like and subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of new videos. If you'd like to support future videos and get the inside track on Terraino development, consider becoming a GameGearMaster member at patreon.com/GameGearMaster. And don't forget to download your free Terraino Basics construction manual at GameGearMaster.com.